welcome to the Orbital Sword. I'm David Moulton.
I am Scottus Maximus Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood.
This episode, we're talking about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
We are indeed. We are indeed.
So, this was my first time reading the book.
You never read it?
I had never read it before.
Wow.
It's possible that I heard the radio show, but I didn't remember. But a brief synopsis of the book is we've got our main character, Arthur, and he's a human, and it just so happens that on the day of the book, the Earth gets destroyed, and he winds up hitchhiking across the galaxy with a guy that he thought was his friend. It turns out to be an alien named Ford, and they just kind of have a mishap of falling into one problem after another. No real agenda or anything. It just kind of happens, and it's all kind of based around this book called The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that kind of explains everything in the universe in layman terms so that people can get around and live this hitchhiker's lifestyle. And through the process, you find out that Earth was created to be a living computer for transdimensional beings. That's the basic plot. That is the plot.
That works.
That works.
That works, indeed.
So, yeah, that's my super brief summary.
That is a great super brief summary. So, first time reading it, what was your impression of the book?
I don't like this at all. I didn't enjoy it.
You didn't enjoy it at all?
Nope.
You're serious?
I'm serious.
Not your type, not your cup of tea?
I did not like it.
Oh.
I had to force myself to read it.
Oh, wow.
This book could have been a one-seat reading, and it took about 4 because I found it very boring. However, what's that?
This is really interesting. I have never met someone who did not like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
It could be the medium. I just was so bored with the way he wrote and the way that he explained things. Anytime something new came on scene, I was just like it was just like a pain to read about his describing of things. There was the book didn't go anywhere. There was no agenda. They literally just fell into everything. And even at the end of the book was my favorite part, and not because it ended. That would be very cliche to say that. I really like the way, I know the next book is called The Diner at the End of the Universe. Right, and I really
restaurant.
Diner at the End of the Universe was the Sci-Fi Diner podcast, the original title. So, based on that.
Based on Douglas Adams. Yeah. But I really like how the book ends, but the adventure, which finally feels like it's going somewhere, kind of starts, and they're just like, "Hey, all right, next stop's the restaurant at the end of the universe." And I was like, "Well, that was a great ending. Like that ending, if I had enjoyed the whole thing, would make me want to pick up the other book." Because
maybe you should.
Maybe I should pick up the other. It was a very easy read. I'm not going to go that. And I'm reading it, and the whole time I'm thinking to myself, if I heard this on the radio, which I probably did when I was younger, I probably loved it because it is written in this narrative that fits radio so well. Like if somebody with a great voice can make you picture these things in your head while they're emoting and vocally to you and that's the way it reads. But when I read it with my monotone internal voice, there's no love, there's no passion. There's
wait. Your internal voice is monotone.
My internal voice is very flat, and this is very it's like if Data were to sit and read you a book, that would be my internal voice. It's very
mine's. Oh, so yours reads in Morse code.
Basically.
Nice. So, okay. No wonder you had struggled with this book. I mean, Morse code. I don't even know Morse code.
I had to sit down and write it down.
See, no wonder it sucked. So, oh man. Well, I'm sorry that you know what you really need to do is you need to listen to this book.
That's actually
because I didn't. So, just so you know, listeners, when I say that I read a book, 99% of the time I have listened to it because I just don't make the time to sit down and actually physically pick up a book and read. I do, but with kids and everything that I'm kind of juggling in my life, I end up listening when I run or when I'm driving somewhere, and I'm able to consume quite a bit in that time. And Hitchhiker's Guide I consumed by listening. Jim, how about you? How did you listen, or did you read the book?
I have read the book numerous times, 8 or 9 at least.
Wow.
But I have also listened to the audiobook version. I had cassette recordings of it years ago. I wore them out of all of the Hitchhiker's Guide books by Douglas Adams, read by Douglas Adams. And so
that is awesome.
That brings me to a theory, David.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read this book with a British accent or just as an American? Because I think if you had read it with a British accent, you probably would have enjoyed it more.
But can you do Morse code in a British accent? That's what I want to know.
No, I tried it once on an Aldous lamp, and it sure didn't come out very well.
But did you have a gargle blaster in your hand? Because if you did, I think it would have gone a lot better.
It might have helped.
David, did you read it with alcohol? Because I think that might have helped.
It might have helped as well.
Yeah.
No, I can't say the story is bad. I just did not enjoy the book, and I 110% believe that if I would have listened to this, I would have enjoyed and found myself lost in the story much more. Having
especially
read it,
with a British accent.
Especially with a British accent. And now my mom keeps going on and on about the PB or the NPR PBS publication, where they had full actors.
Oh yeah,
doing
the radio drama.
Yeah, the radio drama of it, and I kind of remember the very beginning of that. So I feel like that would have been awesome. I don't know if a movie would do the same justice. I don't know. I didn't see the movie either.
Okay, I would advise you to avoid it with all due passion. Just don't go anywhere near that movie.
Jim, so what Jim's saying is that he loved the movie.
He loves the movie.
He loves the movie.
Martin Freeman is the best person in the world.
That's right. And come on, and Marvin in the movie, you can't go wrong.
Giant head.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
Yeah. So. I was disappointed with Marvin in the book, but anyway, get the characters. Yeah. But so yeah, I don't know what to say. My rating will definitely reflect my impression of reading the book. However, I feel it needs a disclaimer to say that although I didn't enjoy myself and I didn't enjoy the book, I by no way am saying that it's not a good story.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, Jim, your thoughts. You've read the thing a gazillion times. What your impressions this time, going back and revisiting this old friend of yours after, I don't know how long it was since you last read it. What was it like for you to get back into the story? What did your impressions of it?
Oh, I would have to say it's been about 10 years since I read it. So there was a lot that I didn't remember, specific little things that I really enjoyed. I just the opposite of what David said. I love the way he puts the words together and the language and the sentence structure, because that's what really grabs me. I'll give you an example of that later when we do quotes. But yeah, I'll tell you what, I really like this book. It was recommended to me by a friend so long ago, and I think the first time I read it, I didn't really understand it, and so I dug deeper into it. I like it mostly for the way he twists the sentences around.
Yeah, very good. Well, for me, I'm like you. I haven't read it. I don't know if I've read it 9 times. You might have me beat there. But I've read it at least 4 or 5 times in my life, and every time I have enjoyed it. I enjoy the stupidity of everything and how it mirrors so much of our society. Like for me, when I read this book, I'm like, oh, here's a commentary on society, and I feel like it's still, let's destroy a house to put in a super highway that no one needs and no one's going to use. I mean, it's, and I just think there's, and then it's outdated the moment it's done, because we no longer need that. We have a new way of travel, and it mirrors so much of, I think, our society. And so when I look at this book and I read it, I'm constantly saying, well, that makes sense. Well, that's kind of a commentary. Oh, and so I'm finding relevance for me when I read it. And I think,
Relevance and irony.
yeah, yeah, and seriously, it's in the irony of the book. And I think the other thing that plays in is that, I mean, Douglas Adams tends to be a very existential writer. Stuff happens and there's no reason, and you can't, I mean, and I think he's mirroring his perception of life. The way he viewed it is like stuff just happens. You're kind of thrust into the world, and stuff happens, and all you can control is how you deal and react to it. And that's what the characters are. They're thrown into a situation after situation, and they're just like, okay, how are we going to react to this? Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. But those are my thoughts. I did enjoy this read of it again, okay. And I have the trilogy in 5 parts sitting on my shelf over there. So.
Trilogy in 5 parts?
It is a trilogy in 5 parts.
So it's 5 books.
It's 5, technically 6. There's a 6th one that was written by Alan Dean Foster. Is that right? Off of Douglas Adams' notes?
I think so.
Yeah, Salmon of Doubt.
Okay. Is it ended?
In theory.
You haven't read it?
I think, it's been a while. But I think that the 5th book, correct me if I'm wrong, because I forget, Jim, in the 5th book, they come back to Earth, right?
To be honest with you, I've never read it.
Not Salmon of Doubt, but the 5th book in the series of the Hitchhiker's Guide.
Would that be Life, the Universe, and Everything?
I think so. Don't they, like, the mice rebuild Earth, and he goes back to Earth?
Okay.
Something, yeah. So
yes.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
See, yeah. I may enjoy the overarching story if I got the whole thing. And this felt like a very small. It's a very small book too. It's like 200 pages, so it's compared to what we've normally been reading, which has been like 8 to 1,000 or whatever. Thick novels, heady novels. This is very light, so it very much felt like the first chapter of a broader story. And
well, even in you saying at the end, like, it felt like, oh, the story's going to get going now. Maybe it does.
And there were things that I was curious about, like some things were very foreshadowed, and kind of like once you figured it out in your head, it was like, come on, like the mice making Earth to be a computer, like they explain it, and then they go ahead and tell you the story of it, and it just takes forever. But things like I don't even remember his name. The guy with the 2 heads he turned off part of his brain or whatever.
Yeah, that's Zaphod Beeblebox, right?
Yeah, Beeblebox. They turned off part of his brain on purpose. Like, I'm curious about that. Like, I want to know what's going on there. Because whatever it is enough for him to give up being president, to steal this ship and go gallivanting around. So anyway, there are things that I found interesting, but they don't resolve in this book.
Yeah, very true.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Well, so where do we want to go from here? So we're overall impressions. Do we want to delve into characters a little bit, or we do favorite scenes? I mean,
I guess characters is probably pretty appropriate.
Right. So, okay. What did you think of Arthur Dent?
I mean, was he the main character? I mean, to me, Ford was the main character. Arthur was. I mean, I know you're supposed to be from his perspective because he's an Earthling, but he doesn't do anything much. He's just kind of like along for exposition. So,
yeah.
I mean, I can't say I didn't like him because he didn't do anything. But the same way, like, he doesn't really stand out as much as the other characters do to me. I was more interested in the lady Earthling.
So Trillian.
Yeah. And the fact that she just, like, accepted that Beeblebox came and, like, was like, yo, like, hit on her and was just like, I'm an alien, like, come with me. And she was just like, all right.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Why not? Like,
whoa.
Well, don't forget though the subplot that went along with that, where Zaphod came in and took Trillian away from Arthur.
Right.
Which caused a lot of tension between those two.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, when you hear it from Arthur's perspective, he's like, really beat up about it. When you hear it from her perspective, she was like, "Oh, we were talking, and this other guy walked up, and he had something better to talk about." So,
Right.
I went with him.
Yeah.
Well, she is, after all, an astrophysicist or something like that.
Right.
And Arthur Dent is just Arthur Dent.
Right. Well, I've heard him described as being, Arthur Dent being like the worst hero in the galaxy.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of described
Oh,
that
yeah.
way. But like, there's something every manish about Arthur Dent. There's something very common man, but he gets himself in with this band of people, and somehow he's like the catalyst for them in the middle of all of them. And in the story is still revolving around him, even though the other characters are kind of doing their thing, right?
Right. Well, that's because perhaps Arthur Dent represents us.
Right. Yeah, I think very much he's supposed to be, like you said, the everyman.
Right.
So much so to a point that he doesn't stand out to me.
Yeah. Well, and he has such great. In one way, you made a comment, and I agree with you, David, that Arthur Dent is there so that we can understand what's going on in this new universe. Mm-hmm. Because without Arthur Dent, we wouldn't understand it. Mm-hmm. And so the fact that he functions as a character where we do get a lot of exposition thrown at him so that we understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. But he also is a catalyst for some of the things that happen. But
do you feel like, well, I felt like, like you said, Arthur was you got the exposition through him, the world explained to him, but then the narrator also explains things. It's just like, it just felt like too much. Because it would be like, so he would meet somebody and they'd be like, oh, this is Ford would be like, this is this guy, this is what they do, this is whatever. And then the narrator would take it to the next step and explain, like, the history of the species or whatever.
Right.
Did that... yeah, you guys liked it a lot more than I did.
Oh, yeah, so that didn't bother me, but,
Well, and see, that kind of adds to everything that, well, the entire book is exposition. Mm-hmm. You don't really get any resolution of anything. But that extra explanation is where you get the real funny stuff, in my mind.
Yeah. I think it's like, if someone were to write Arrested Development down on paper, it would read like this: boring, and I wouldn't find it funny. However, put it in another medium where the voices are different, like the narrator is almost like this omnipresent voice chiming in and providing the humor against the like starkness of everything else. That would be great. I mean, played by some British guy, or even if you want to throw in Ron Howard, because how can you go wrong with him to narrate the voice? Like, I think that it would make it much more enjoyable. But in my head, the voice doesn't change.
Yeah.
So,
which I think why, and I know that Jim, you were not a fan of the movie, but having Martin Freeman play Arthur Dent was perfect, because he comes off. If you watch Sherlock, he comes off as this kind of common man. Like even having him play Bilbo, he's this common nobody that suddenly is thrust into something bigger than himself.
Yeah.
And he plays that sort of character well.
He does.
Well, what about Ford Prefect?
You want me to
go? Jim, why don't you go?
Oh, well, Ford, I think, is my favorite character, because no matter what happens, he doesn't get rattled. And he just takes everything in stride, and he knows his business. He knows where his towel is. I'm trying to think of an example of where, he was trying to talk Arthur into not guarding his house because there's no point to it anyway. And
right.
It's, well, let's pop on down to the pub and have a pint.
My favorite thing about that whole thing is when they convince the cab driver, or the caterpillar driver, the guy, the machinery driver, to go out and like sit in front of his house for him.
Yeah, who just happens to be a descendant of the mighty Genghis Khan.
Right. And it's just hilarious. And he goes for it for a
Uh-huh.
while until they actually destroy the house, and then it doesn't matter.
Well,
Yeah.
all of them are under Ford's hypnotic spell
Well, true.
at that point,
That's right.
and it doesn't break till right before they're destroyed.
Yeah, right before they're taken off. But Ford is a fascinating character, I think, because of that.
I'll agree with Jim. I think he was my favorite. I enjoyed seeing the world through his perspective more than Arthur's, because what I found funny was stuff Ford's perception on humans, and Arthur would say something that seemed normal, and then Ford would be like, "Well, I used to think that they didn't stop talking because then their brains would stop working, and then this is something like,
Yes.
but now that I realize that if they do stop talking, their brains will start. I don't know, something like that. So I thought that stuff was more humorous than the audacity of the aliens.
Yeah. Well, and I like how you said, Jim, that Ford's one of these guys that takes everything in stride. Oh, we're tossed out the airlock. We have 30 seconds to live. Not too worried about it. 29 seconds later, boom, Zaphod Beebox to the rescue.
Something's going to come along.
Right. I might towel. We're good to go.
What's his face? Chris, guy who plays Star-Lord would play him really well.
Oh, Pratt.
Pratt, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he would.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to recast this, we have Martin Freeman still playing.
Yeah, I would keep
Martin Freeman
as
is Arthur Dent, but then Ford Prefect played by
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt. There we go. Now we need Zaphod Beeblebox.
Man, I don't even know.
Iggy Pop.
Iggy Pop.
Let's have Iggy Pop play him.
Like a Hugh Laurie player.
Yeah.
Iggy Pop.
Hey,
I could
see
see Iggy
Jim.
Pop there.
Jim seeing it. He's laughing at it.
All right.
Isn't he totally?
Iggy
He's totally Zaphod
Iggy
Beeblebox.
Pop's. Yeah, Iggy Pop's head on one side and Marilyn Manson on the other.
Absolutely. That would be perfect.
Well, who would play Trillian? In my mind, I have a picture of the girl, but I don't know what her name is. She always plays nerdy girls on like comedy shows.
Oh, I have no clue.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what her name is.
No, me neither.
So,
If you don't remember, I don't. I don't watch comedy shows.
so maybe the girl on Last Man on Earth. What's her name? Whatever. Big
Yep.
nose. Funny.
All right. Well, what about Zaphod Beeblebox? The president of the galaxy. Who has about as much power as anyone, right?
I found his character like throwaway, except up until the point where he divulges the info that there's the part of his brain that's turned off, and that he turned it off. Then I found him interesting. Up until that point, I was like, he didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, why did he steal the ship? Why did he, what's
Okay, I think I can help you with that. If you remember, he was elected president in order to take attention away from the real center of power in the galaxy.
Right.
So he's a tabloid president that does all this weird stuff, so that the people who are really governing, they don't get scrutinized.
Hey, that sounds like true life.
Don't get me started on that.
Oh, this is not a political show, but again, when you talk about this book being ironic and having stuff that really does mirror real life at times, well, we might have that in Zaphod Beeblebox a little bit.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm really, if anything gets me to continue, and it would have to be audio, which I gotta say I'm slightly interested in doing. It's gonna be the curiosity behind this character and why, why he's motivated to do the things he does.
See, and on my impressions of Zaphod is, I would not like this person. I would not want anything to do with him. He is a total smartass and says things that they're non sequiturs, and he doesn't contribute anything.
I agree with that. He's very into himself.
Yeah. Which you know, and I'm not trying to imply anything, but a president has to be.
Right. Yeah. So a celebrity president who is into themselves, doing their own thing, to draw attention from what's really going on.
What's really going on.
Yeah.
Join us on our conspiracy theory podcast.
Yes, on our new podcast we're launching about, well, does Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy mirror what's really going on in America right now? So, well, you know, this is not really a character, but I want to call the ship a character, the Heart of Gold, and maybe want to call the computer Eddie, right? Eddie the computer. So let's talk about Heart of Gold and the infinite improbability drive.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Hits every point in the universe simultaneously.
It's very true. And I think it's this idea of improbability really does mirror, you know, well, stuff just happens.
Yeah.
You know, there's no rhyme or reason. So.
Well, of course. There are infinite possibilities with everything you do.
Right.
You know, so.
And some of them are so improbable they don't even make sense, like the missile turning into a whale.
Oh, one of my favorite scenes, mind you. I use that scene in my classes.
Oh yeah,
in world literature.
I like that scene too. I like the whole thought process of the whale.
Well, it's very existential.
Yes,
and that's why when I mentioned there that I think Douglas Adams, on one level, is writing on it from a very existential viewpoint. That stuff just happens, and he turns into a sperm whale. That's actually one of my quotes when we get to it. That whole conversation is absolutely great. But. Yeah, so definitely there. What other characters are we missing here? There's others. We talked about Trillian real briefly. Marvin. Let's talk about Marvin, our favorite depressed robot.
Yes. I love Marvin.
he is. Would you call him the realist of the group?
I'd call him the fatalist of the group.
The fatalist. Yeah, no, definitely a little bit Eeyore-ish. If you're to tie it in a little bit to Winnie the Pooh, I guess, but. Yeah, definitely the fatalist of the group.
Yeah, and brilliant, a genius. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, you folks just don't understand. But then again, you don't have a mind as large as mine.
I started off not liking him, but then I towards the end I enjoyed his antics a little bit more, especially when he killed the ship by talking to it.
Oh, yeah.
There was no one to talk to, so I plugged into the ship and it committed suicide.
That was hilarious.
Oh, David, you got to look up somewhere the songs that he does in the third book, Life, the Universe, and Everything.
Okay.
Because he sings a lullaby.
Oh.
It's great.
All right, I'll have to look it up.
Now I lay me down to sleep. Try to count electric sheep. Sweet dream wishes you can keep. How I hate the night.
What was the one thing before he shut off at the one point when he's left in the Wormspill crater? Arthur walks away and he's like, well, he decided to count sheep, counted to 4 billion, and 2 seconds went by and he turned himself off. And he does all this stuff and you're like, oh, he got busy, but then it was only 2 seconds. So.
Yeah. Anyone else we should talk about? I mean, those are some of the major characters. We have, of course, Frankie and Benji the mice.
Yeah. Slarty Bartfast.
Oh, yeah. Smarty Bartfast. And who was he again? I forget. He was
he was the one that works at Magarathea.
Yeah, the world.
Helping to build the Earth.
That's right.
He was the designer of the fjords around Norway.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say Iceland, but Norway's right. Yeah, it's the fjords in Norway. And he was right. He won an award for that.
Yes.
Those are some beautiful fjords.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that. But yeah, so. But yeah, I don't know much to say about him, but I liked him as a character.
Yeah.
So.
None of the other characters really stuck out. It's really the core four.
Why don't we jump in? Any favorite scenes that we had? We mentioned, I'm sure, some of them already, but what are some of the favorite scenes that you had? David, how about you?
Well, my favorite scene kind of goes in with my favorite quote part, and I don't have it written down, but it's when they're discussing, the mice are discussing what to do about Arthur runs away, and they're like, we know the answer to the universe, we don't know the question. And they're like, quick, let's just come up with a question because I don't want to spend 10 million years doing it again. And the guys, they throw out a couple and they're nothing. And he's just like, how many roads must a man take? They're like, yeah, that's perfect. It's very, like, it can mean so many different things. The answer's 42. And they're like, we'll go with that. Let's just go back and tell everyone this is the question. So I thought that was my favorite part.
That was your favorite part. Jim, how about you? Favorite parts or scenes in this book?
The entire first chapter, the opening, it just grabs me when I read it, and makes me want to read more.
Yeah, that I do like that opening scene. You know, the whole destroying the house to build a superhighway, and then that mirroring, well, let's destroy the earth to build a superhighway.
Yes. Well, yellow. Why do I keep thinking about yellow?
Right.
Looks out there's a bulldozer outside.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite scenes, again, and we mentioned this, but the sperm whale scene has to be one of my favorite scenes. You know, in that whole conversation, so out there.
Yeah, I think that's probably my runner.
Yeah.
That followed by them walking through it, to find the entrance.
Oh yeah.
Just walking through the sperm whale crater.
Right. Yeah, why is there a sperm whale? Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other scenes. I mean, there's a lot of funny parts, but I think the thing that makes it funny, like Jim, you said, is the irony in a lot of what they're talking about.
Yeah.
The idea of mice being the people that were really running the earth, and humans thinking they're controlling the mice when really it's the mice controlling the humans.
Yeah.
Making them do things, and the dolphins realizing that, you know what, thank you for all the fish. We've been trying to warn you for the longest time. You haven't been listening, but good riddance.
Yeah. Computer being the Earth being a giant computer, and the way that the calculations are being done on the backs of napkins in bistros, and
I don't think it got that far in the
all
movie.
that.
Did it?
Yeah, no, it did. They talk about it, but it's when they're talking about the Earth, I think it's the mice when the mice are conversing about what has happened.
So it's people do because I must have missed that. I missed how they were using the people as machines. People just start writing without noticing it. Is that it?
I think it's like doodles.
Oh no. Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, it bistromathic calculation. that and of course thinking that digital watches are pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
I got the digital watch thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Too bad they didn't have cell phones back then, because smartphones would totally be what he's writing about right now. But
oh gosh,
I know. But so we're here. Do we have any favorite quotes?
Well, I give mine. I don't have it written down, but the conversation between the two mice about coming up with a fib for.
Oh yes, that is a good one.
For the
Jim, how about you? Do you have one?
Yes, I do. It's from chapter 2. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also mentions alcohol. It says that the best drink in existence is the Pangalactic Gargle Blaster. It says that the effect of drinking a Pangalactic Gargle Blaster is like having your brains smashed out by a slice of lemon wrapped around a large gold brick. The guide also tells you on which planets the best Pangalactic Gargle Blasters are mixed, and how much you can expect to pay for one, and what voluntary organizations exist to help you rehabilitate afterwards.
That is good. That is good.
And that's the example that I really like, the getting your brains smashed out by a wet slice of lemon wrapped around a large gold brick.
It's
backwards.
It is. It is. Well, here's one that I have, and I had this one's about the dolphins, right? And he says, for instance, on the planet Earth, man had always assumed that he was more intelligent than dolphins because he had achieved so much: the wheel, New York, wars, and so on. Whilst all the dolphins had ever done was muck about the water having a good time. But conversely, the dolphins had always believed that they were far more intelligent for man for precisely the same reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's true.
Yeah, I think the thread that goes throughout the book, maybe and the series in general, is the articles in the Hitchhiker's Guide itself
Yeah, because they
are
explain so
really,
much. Yeah.
they're entertaining.
Yeah. Plus, we can't forget the quote, "Don't panic."
Yeah.
I mean, that's the iconic, right? Don't panic.
Yeah.
But I also like the one, "Time is an illusion. Lunchtime doubly so."
Boy, that's the truth.
Yeah, I know. That's an illusion.
You know, I gotta say, I'm gonna call it as the Napoleon Dynamite effect. And in actually talking to someone about this book, I find talking about it much more enjoyable than I did consuming it. So, and that was the same way Napoleon Dynamite is. It's not fun to watch or take in, but then talking about it for years to come
Right.
has
Yeah.
merit. So
Yeah.
I think this might be similar to me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten into one of those sessions where you're sitting around with your friends quoting the entire movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true. I also like this quote by him. He said, I'd far rather be happy than right any day."
I like that.
It is. Or Thursdays. I just can't get the hang of Thursdays. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of good quotes I'm looking at. So, yeah. For a moment, nothing happened. Then after a second or so, nothing continued to happen.
Well, let's move along here to our closing thoughts, which includes our rating of this book. So let's go ahead and start with you, Scott.
10 Gargle Blasters out of 10 Gargle Blasters.
Okay, so an undisputed, absolute
Well,
lemon smashed out of your head.
Yeah, so it's very true. And here's the thing, like, I'm glad you read it, David, because I think that you can't really say that you've read. When we talk about pieces of literature that have impacted the sci-fi community and are referenced, I would say that Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guides, shows up in different places.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when is the answer not 42? Mm-hmm. And you, and I think that this book has had such an impact that it's one of the books that if you're going to call yourself a reader of science fiction, you at least have to have under your belt.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
And I have felt like it's been hanging over my head forever.
Well, no longer, David. No longer. But.
All right, Jim. Where does this sit with you?
Okay. You're well aware I read lots of science fiction, and I read a lot of heavier science fiction, and the Hitchhiker's Guide books are an opportunity for me to kind of take a step back once in a while and look at something that isn't so heavy, doesn't make me think so much, and just be entertained with a book instead of having to really slog through something.
Yeah. So your rating on it?
My rating, 5 out of 5.
All right, very
for the entertainment value.
All right.
And the language.
And you say that, Jim, but I would argue that there is some incredible depth in the book.
If you really dig into it, yes.
Yeah.
If you want it.
If you want it. If not, it's just hilarious. How now, David?
Oh, yeah.
How would you rate this book, David?
Let me tell you what was thinking in my head was a 1. And I'll raise it to a 1.5, 0.75 because I feel like I could consume it differently and it could change my mind. I would not recommend the book to anyone. Not because it's, and this is so weird because I'm giving it a low rating, not because it's a bad book, but because of my own enjoyment, which is usually when I give a low rating, it's like, don't ever read this book. But right now, it's just like, I just didn't enjoy it, and I would not read it, and I would not recommend it to anyone. Not because it's a bad book, but because I would never, I don't think I'll ever think to, like, if someone's like, oh, give me a book recommendation, like, this is not going to be on the tip of my tongue as a recommendation. So,
fair enough.
that's where I'm gonna stick with it.
Fair enough.
It's a weird one for me. So.
Yeah. Well, maybe the medium is everything. So
It is, and I may consume the second book via audio.
people speak highly of the radio dramas. If you ever get a chance, maybe the radio drama might be the way for you to go.
Yeah, I think it might be.
So, yeah.
Well, and that's the way it was originally intended anyway,
Right.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it originally was a radio drama, then became a book.
Okay. All right.
So
Yeah.
So that could have a lot to do with it. But
it does.
in no way do I think that somebody who does not like the book should have to apologize. And hopefully, David, you're not apologizing for it.
No, absolutely.
And I don't take away any credibility from you as a sci-fi person because you don't like this book. It's cool. I can certainly understand why.
So
Well,
you don't
thanks.
have to turn in your geek card, is what we're saying.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
you can keep it for a little bit longer.
I felt like I put another notch on it for reading it. Now, if I feel like I would need to be more apologetic if I hated it, like was anti the book. I just didn't enjoy it, which is
A little bit different. It is a little bit different. Yeah.
So.
Now, if you run down Babylon 5, though, I will revoke your geek card.
Yeah.
I do like Babylon 5. I have trouble getting into it because it's very intellectual. But that's just because I haven't given it the time it needs.
Yep.
So.
Well, I think that's about it, right?
Yeah, that about
so
wraps us up. So next time,
Larry Niven. Ringworld.
Ringworld.
That's right.
Of course, we want to know what you think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, as well as Ringworld for next month. Ways that you can interact with us. You can find us on Facebook at The Orbital Sword. You can find us on Twitter at The Orbital Sword, I think. We have that set up.
Did you set it up?
I think we did last time.
Okay.
Well, you might be able to find us on Twitter.
Yeah, we
At
will
The
be on
Orbital
Twitter.
Sword.
We'll just have to get you that information. Go to Facebook and we'll let you know the
Yeah.
Twitter.
We also have our website, theorbitalsword.com.
Right.
And you can check us on Goodreads. That's going to be our number one place to
Interact.
and vote on books is
Yeah.
Goodreads. We're going to have all our polls up there. A really easy way to connect our books and see other people's thoughts. So,
And we do want to hear from you. Like, what books do you want us to read? And we
Right.
will. We get enough majority rules, or we will put them into a poll that you can then
yeah,
vote.
I'm excited to continue sailing down this journey. So,
Sounds real good.
cool. So, once again for the Orbital Sword, I'm David Moulton.
And I am Scott Herzog.
And I'm Jim Arrowwood, and we get to have a tagline.
And we're working on the tagline, but thank you so much for listening.
We'll see you next time.